A long-hidden Filipino tradition, buried deep within the mountains, far away from the cities, far from noise, far from cameras, suddenly appeared before a group of foreign visitors who thought they had seen everything. They expected a simple cultural show. They expected a normal day. But instead, they witnessed something so powerful, so mysterious, and so emotionally overwhelming that several of them could not speak for minutes after it ended. One man's hands trembled. A woman covered her mouth. Another stood frozen, trying to understand what she had just seen. But none of them were ready for the truth behind the ritual. This is the story of a Filipino tradition so old, so sacred, and so deeply tied to identity and ancestry that even many Filipinos living in the cities don't fully know its meaning. A tradition passed silently from one generation to the next. A tradition protected, guarded, and performed only when necessary. And the moment foreigners saw it, truly saw it, something inside them changed. Before that moment, these visitors believed Filipino culture was only about smiles, festivals, food, hospitality, and beaches. They had no idea there were ancient rituals older than the countries they came from. They had no idea there were traditions performed long before electricity, long before roads, long before colonizers ever arrived. They had no idea that deep in the mountains there were communities who still honored their ancestors through ceremonies that have never been written in textbooks. Their journey began with a simple invitation. They had come to the Philippines to document cultures, but a local guide warned them, "There is a ritual you can witness, but only if the elders allow it. You cannot ask. You cannot demand. You can only be invited." They thought it was just a dramatic line. They didn't understand it was real. The climb into the mountains took hours. The trail narrowed. The wind grew colder. The forest became thicker. As they ascended, the guide grew quieter. He told them they were entering a place where the ancestors were believed to walk, where spirits were honored, where traditions were not performances but living memories. When they finally reached the village, silence met them first. Not fear, not hostility, just silence, the kind that commands respect. Elders sat in a semicircle, their faces painted with patterns symbolizing lineage and identity. Younger members of the community prepared woven cloth, carved wooden instruments, and clay jars filled with offerings. The visitors waited, unsure of what would happen next. Then one elder stood up, looked at each visitor one by one, and gave a small nod. Permission granted, and everything changed. The ritual began with a single drum beat, slow, deep, echoing through the air like a heartbeat of the mountain itself. Another drum followed, then another. The foreigners' bodies reacted before they understood why. Their chest vibrated with each strike. The sound traveled through the ground, through the trees, through their bones. Then came the chanting. It was unlike any song they had heard before. It wasn't sung in modern Filipino. It wasn't sung in English. It wasn't even sung in Tagalog. It was a language older than modern records, a language spoken only during rituals, a language believed to be the voice of the ancestors. The chants rose and fell like waves, sometimes soft like a whisper, sometimes strong like thunder. The rhythm shifted from calm to intense, from sorrowful to triumphant. The visitors looked at each other, unsettled yet captivated. It didn't feel like music. It felt like communication, something directed to the unseen. Then the dancers stepped forward. Their movements were slow, precise, deliberate. Every gesture meant something, a hand to the sky, a hand to the ground, a slow turn, a sudden stomp. These were not random motions. They were reenactments of ancient stories. Battles survived, harvests protected, storms endured, ancestors honored. One visitor whispered, "It feels like they're talking to someone we can't see." He didn't know how right he was. This was not a performance. It was a call, a remembrance, a bridge between past and present. The dancers' faces showed no hesitation, no fear, only devotion. At the center of the ritual was a wooden carving, tall, aged, smooth from centuries of touch. It represented the guardian of their tribe, a symbol passed down through countless generations. Foreigners stared at it, confused at its simplicity, unaware of its power. Then the ritual shifted. The chanting suddenly softened. The drum beats slowed. The village grew quiet, too quiet. Even the wind seemed to pause. One elder stepped forward with a bowl of smoke. He circled around the foreigners, letting the smoke rise between them before walking back toward the center. The visitors exchanged nervous glances. They had never been included in any ritual before. Then something happened that none of them could explain later. A young dancer, barefoot, wearing traditional cloth, eyes focused like he was seeing something beyond this world, began a solo movement. Every step was measured, every motion was heavy with meaning. The foreigners didn't understand the symbolism, but they felt it. It was as if the dancer was carrying a burden far older than himself. One foreign visitor whispered, "What is he doing?" A villager replied softly, "He is telling the story of a life, from birth to struggle to loss to strength. It is the journey of every person, but told through the eyes of our ancestors." The dancer reached out his hand as if holding something invisible. He raised it to the sky. The elders hummed. The drum gave one final slow beat. Then he fell to his knees, trembling. And for the first time since the ritual began, the foreigners felt something they had not expected. Grief. Not their grief, but the grief of a people who survived wars, colonization, famine, and loss, yet carried their culture forward with dignity. The ritual continued for nearly an hour, shifting from grief to triumph, from sorrow to celebration. There were moments of silence so heavy that the visitors could hear their own heartbeat. There were moments of intensity that made their chest tighten. There were moments of beauty so overwhelming that one visitor began crying without understanding why. By the time the ritual ended, not a single foreign visitor spoke. The elder approached them slowly and said, with calm certainty, "This is our way of remembering where we came from. Without this, we are nothing." One visitor whispered, "I have never felt anything like that in my life." Another said, "I don't understand it, but I feel it." And that was the point. The tradition wasn't meant to be understood by outsiders. It wasn't meant to be explained in words. It was meant to be felt, with the heart, with the body, with the spirit. The foreigners came expecting a performance. They left carrying something they couldn't explain, something ancient, something powerful, something unforgettable, and that is why this Filipino tradition left them speechless. If you want more powerful, emotional, and eye-opening stories about Filipino culture, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next video.